Myles Garrett just said something that nobody saw coming. And honestly, it might be the most important statement any player has made this entire NFL season. Because when one of the most dominant defensive forces in football history goes out of his way to publicly declare that a rookie quarterback is the best playmaker on the entire roster, people need to pay attention. This wasn't some carefully rehearsed media answer. This wasn't a veteran throwing out empty compliments to make a young teammate feel good about himself. No, this was Myles Garrett, a former Defensive Player of the Year, a generational talent who has earned the right to speak his mind without holding anything back, standing in front of cameras, and essentially telling the entire football world that they've been dead wrong about Shedeur Sanders. The guy's special. That's what Garrett said. Not promising, not developing, special. Anytime he's on the field, he's a game changer. He's a playmaker. Those words carry weight that most people don't fully understand, because Myles Garrett doesn't hand out praise like candy on Halloween. He's played alongside Pro Bowlers. He's gone head-to-head against future Hall of Famers. He knows exactly what elite talent looks like. And he's telling everyone that Shedeur Sanders already has it. But here's where things get really interesting. Garrett didn't stop at just praising his quarterback's abilities. He went further. He addressed the whispers, the rumors, the speculation that had been floating around about whether Sanders truly belonged in that locker room, whether the veterans actually respected him, whether this rookie could handle the weight of being Cleveland's franchise quarterback. Garrett shut all of that down with one simple statement: "We fight because we have each other. This is a brotherhood. That's not just teammate talk." That's a declaration of war against everyone who tried to tear Shedeur Sanders down before he even had a fair chance to prove himself. And trust me, there were plenty of people trying to do exactly that. But what made the media and so many fans turn against Sanders in the first place? Long before Shedeur Sanders ever stepped foot in an NFL facility, the knives were already out. And they weren't subtle about it either. The moment his name started appearing on draft boards, the criticism machine kicked into overdrive. Suddenly, every analyst with a microphone had something negative to say. Every scout with anonymous sources had concerns to share. Every talking head on television found a reason to doubt whether this kid actually deserved the hype surrounding him. The word that kept coming up over and over again was attitude. Reports suggested that Shedeur had a diva personality, that he was entitled, that he walked around like he was already a superstar before proving anything at the professional level. Teams allegedly had concerns about whether he could handle coaching, whether he would accept criticism, whether his ego would fit inside an NFL locker room alongside veterans who had actually accomplished something in the league. And of course, nobody could talk about Shedeur without bringing up his father, Dillon Sanders, prime-time himself. One of the greatest defensive backs in football history and current head coach at Colorado. The speculation was relentless. Did Shedeur actually earn his recognition, or was he simply riding his daddy's coattails? Was the media attention genuine or manufactured because of his famous last name? Would NFL teams really be willing to invest a first-round pick in someone who might only be famous because of who raised him? The comparisons to past quarterback busts started flying around. Analysts dug up every hyped prospect who failed to live up to expectations and drew parallels that honestly made no sense. They questioned his arm strength. They questioned his decision-making under pressure. They questioned whether his college success at Colorado would translate to the next level, conveniently ignoring the records he shattered and the elite performances he delivered against legitimate competition. Social media made everything 10 times worse. Every platform became a battlefield where fans who had never watched a single Colorado game suddenly had strong opinions about Shedeur's future. Overrated became the favorite word. Bust became the prediction. Comment sections filled up with people who seemed genuinely excited about watching this young man fail before he even got started. Some reports claimed that certain teams removed Shedeur from their draft boards entirely, not because of his talent, not because of his football abilities, but because of mysterious character, concerns that nobody could actually define or explain with any specificity. It was all vibes and whispers. Anonymous sources saying anonymous things designed to tank his stock and damage his reputation before he ever threw a professional pass. The narrative was set in stone before the draft even happened. Shedeur Sanders was supposedly a problem waiting to happen, a locker room cancer in the making. a quarterback with more ego than ability who would crumble the moment things got difficult at the NFL level. And here's the thing that made all of this even more unfair. Shedeur never actually did anything wrong. There were no arrests, no scandals, no public incidents that justified this level of skepticism. He showed up to workouts. He prepared like a professional. He said the right things in interviews. But none of that mattered because the media had already decided what kind of player and person he was going to be. The hate was real. The doubt was constant. And Shedeur Sanders had to carry all of that weight on his shoulders before his NFL career even officially began. But getting drafted by Cleveland didn't make things any easier. If anything, the pressure was about to get significantly worse. Landing in Cleveland should have been a fresh start. A chance to prove everyone wrong on the biggest stage in football. Instead, Shedeur Sanders walked straight into one of the most chaotic situations in the entire NFL. The Browns' organization had been a mess for years. Coaching instability, front office drama, a revolving door at the quarterback position that had become a running joke across the league. Cleveland hadn't had a legitimate franchise quarterback in decades. The ghosts of failed prospects haunted that building like a curse that refused to break. And now, a rookie with a famous last name and a target on his back was supposed to fix everything overnight. The early games were rough, not disastrous, not unwatchable, but definitely not the immediate superstar emergence that impatient fans and hungry media members were demanding. There were growing pains, miscommunications with receivers still learning the offense, throws that sailed high or landed behind targets, drives that stalled in the red zone when points were desperately needed. The kind of struggles that literally every rookie quarterback experiences, but somehow became national news when Shedeur was the one making mistakes. The media pounced immediately. Every incompletion got dissected on morning shows. Every loss became evidence that the doubters were right all along. Every bad quarter turned into a referendum on whether the Browns had made a massive mistake by trusting their future to Dillon Sanders' son. The criticism wasn't just harsh. It was personal. It was relentless. And it never seemed to stop no matter what Shedeur did on the field. Then came the whispers about the locker room. Anonymous reports started surfacing, suggesting that veterans weren't happy with their new quarterback, that there was tension behind closed doors, that some players questioned whether Shedeur had earned the starting job or simply been handed it because of his name recognition and draft position. These rumors spread like wildfire across social media and sports talk radio. Suddenly, everyone was an expert on Browns' locker room dynamics despite having zero actual access or information. The narrative became toxic. Shedeur Sanders was supposedly losing the team. Veterans allegedly rolled their eyes at his confidence. Teammates were apparently frustrated with his leadership style. None of this was ever confirmed by anyone willing to put their name on record. But that didn't matter. The story was too juicy to fact-check, too compelling to question. A famous coach's son, failing spectacularly in Cleveland, was exactly the content that drives clicks and engagement. What nobody talked about was the impossible situation Shedeur was navigating. He was a rookie learning an NFL offense while playing behind an offensive line that couldn't protect him consistently. He was adjusting to professional speed while facing defensive schemes specifically designed to confuse and overwhelm young quarterbacks. He was trying to build chemistry with receivers he had never played with before while the entire football world watched and criticized his every move. The pressure would have broken most people. Veterans with years of experience have crumbled under far less scrutiny than what Shedeur faced during those early weeks. But somehow, he kept showing up, kept preparing, kept working, kept believing that things would eventually turn around if he just stayed focused and blocked out the noise. His teammates saw something that the outside world refused to acknowledge. They saw a young man who arrived first to meetings and left last from practice. They saw someone who took coaching without complaint and studied film like his life depended on it. They saw a leader emerging through the struggle rather than running from it. But the public didn't care about any of that. They only cared about wins and losses. And until Shedeur delivered a signature moment, the criticism would continue without mercy. Then came the Pittsburgh Steelers game. And everything changed. The Pittsburgh Steelers represent everything that makes the NFL brutally difficult for young quarterbacks. A legendary franchise with a defensive identity built on physical intimidation and mental warfare. Complex schemes designed to confuse even veteran signal callers. pass rushers who smell fear and exploit hesitation without mercy. This was the absolute worst possible matchup for a rookie quarterback trying to find his footing while the entire world watched and waited for him to fail. Nobody outside the Browns' locker room gave Cleveland a realistic chance in this game. The Steelers needed this victory for their playoff positioning. Their defense had been dominant all season, creating chaos for opposing offenses and turning quarterbacks into nervous wrecks who couldn't complete basic throws. The analytics said Pittsburgh would win. The experts predicted Pittsburgh would win. Vegas set the line expecting Pittsburgh would win comfortably, but Shedeur Sanders apparently never got that memo. From the opening drive, something felt different about the Browns' offense. There was a confidence in the huddle that hadn't been visible in previous weeks, a swagger that seemed to radiate from the rookie quarterback, calling plays and directing traffic. Shedeur wasn't playing like someone hoping to survive against a superior opponent. He was playing like someone who genuinely believed he was about to shock the entire football world. The Steelers' defense came out with their typical aggressive approach. Exotic blitz packages designed to overwhelm protection schemes. Disguised coverages meant to bait quarterbacks into throwing to defenders instead of receivers. Defensive linemen firing off the ball with bad intentions, looking to plant Shedeur into the turf and send a message early that this game would be physically punishing. None of it worked. Shedeur stood tall in the pocket when pressure came. He didn't flinch when defenders broke through the line. He didn't panic when his first read was covered and he needed to work through progressions. Instead, he delivered strike after strike with an accuracy that made experienced analysts sit up and take notice. His footwork was precise. His decisions were quick. His throws were on target with velocity and placement that receivers could actually do something with after the catch. What really separated this performance from anything Shedeur had shown previously was his composure in critical moments. Third down conversions that kept drives alive when the Steelers were expecting to force punts. Red zone efficiency that turned scoring opportunities into actual points instead of field goal attempts. Clutch throws on timing routes that required perfect anticipation and trust in his receivers to be exactly where they needed to be. The Steelers' defense started showing visible frustration as the game progressed. Their pass rush wasn't getting home consistently. Their coverage schemes weren't fooling the rookie quarterback like they had fooled so many others before him. Players who were supposed to dominate this matchup found themselves chasing shadows, while Shedeur picked them apart with surgical precision. One statistic told the story better than anything else. Shedeur finished the game with a completion percentage that made veteran quarterbacks around the league look ordinary by comparison. On that same Sunday, Aaron Rodgers struggled to complete barely half his passes in a different game. A future Hall of Famer with decades of experience looked lost and confused, while a rookie playing for the Cleveland Browns looked like he had been doing this his entire life. But statistics only capture part of what happened in Pittsburgh that afternoon. The moments that don't show up on stat sheets revealed even more about who Shedeur Sanders truly was. The way he communicated with teammates after incompletions, taking responsibility and keeping everyone focused. The way he adjusted at the line of scrimmage when he recognized defensive looks designed to fool him. The way he carried himself between plays with a quiet confidence that spread throughout the entire offense. The game came down to exactly the kind of situation that exposes pretenders and reveals genuine stars. Late in the fourth quarter, pressure mounting, everything on the line. One drive to either win the game or validate every critic who said Shedeur Sanders wasn't ready for this moment. He delivered. The winning drive was a masterpiece of execution under maximum pressure. Shedeur converted throws that required perfect timing and placement. He extended plays when the pocket collapsed around him. He made decisions that veterans with 10 years of experience would have second-guessed. And when the final whistle blew, the Cleveland Browns had done what nobody thought possible. They had beaten the Pittsburgh Steelers in a game that was supposed to expose their rookie quarterback as overmatched and unprepared. The celebration on the field told its own story. Teammates mobbing Shedeur with genuine joy and admiration. Veterans who had supposedly been skeptical of their young quarterback embracing him like he had just earned their permanent respect. Coaches who had been under fire for trusting a rookie in this situation, vindicated by a performance that exceeded every reasonable expectation. For Shedeur Sanders, this wasn't just a win. This was validation. This was proof that everything the doubters said about him was wrong. This was a statement to the entire NFL that he belonged at this level and wasn't going anywhere. But the real fireworks were about to happen in the press room, because Myles Garrett had been watching everything unfold, and he had something to say that would make the entire football world take notice. The press room, after an NFL game, usually produces forgettable quotes, generic statements about executing the game plan, boring cliches about taking things 1 week at a time, safe answers designed to avoid controversy and keep everyone happy. Players learn early in their careers to say nothing meaningful while appearing to say something. It's a survival skill in the modern media environment. Myles Garrett apparently decided he was done playing that game. When reporters started asking questions about Shedeur Sanders and the Browns' victory over Pittsburgh, something shifted in Garrett's demeanor. This wasn't going to be a typical post-game interview filled with empty platitudes and rehearsed responses. The defensive superstar had clearly been waiting for this moment, waiting to address the criticism, waiting to confront the doubters, waiting to defend his quarterback in a way that would leave absolutely no room for misinterpretation. The guy's special. Anytime he's on the field, he's a game changer. He's a playmaker. So I'm not surprised that he was the one that came up with the big play to win it for us. Those words landed like a thunderbolt across the football world. This wasn't qualified praise with escape hatches built in. This wasn't saying Shedeur showed promise or had potential to develop into something special down the road. Myles Garrett was declaring in the strongest possible terms that Shedeur Sanders was already operating at an elite level, already making plays that determined outcomes, already performing like a franchise quarterback despite being months into his professional career. But Garrett was just getting started. The questions kept coming, reporters probing for any crack in the Browns' locker room unity, any hint that the rumors about tension and discord might have some validity, any suggestion that veterans privately felt differently than what they were saying publicly about their rookie quarterback. Garrett shut all of it down with visible frustration. We fight for each other. That's everybody. I don't think they're fighting so hard because of me. I don't think they're fighting so hard because of Kevin. We fight because we have each other. And this is a brotherhood. The weight of those words cannot be overstated. This was Myles Garrett, the face of the Cleveland Browns franchise, the highest paid defender in football, a player with legitimate claim to being the best at his position in the entire league, publicly declaring that the team's success wasn't about him. It wasn't about any individual star. It was about collective belief and mutual respect that centered on everyone fighting for each other. And Shedeur Sanders was clearly at the heart of that brotherhood. Garrett's emotions were raw and authentic throughout the press conference. His voice carried genuine passion when defending his quarterback. His body language radiated protective energy like an older brother standing up for family being unfairly attacked. This wasn't performance for cameras. This wasn't strategic messaging coordinated with the Browns' public relations department. This was a player who had genuinely had enough of watching his teammate get disrespected and decided to do something about it. You know you want to make the most of it every time you step on the field, and you know what the guy next to you has put into it. You know what this means to him, and you don't want to take this for granted. That statement revealed something profound about what was actually happening inside the Browns' locker room. The veterans weren't merely tolerating their rookie quarterback. They weren't grudgingly accepting his presence because management told them to. They were witnessing his work ethic firsthand. They were seeing his dedication and sacrifice. They were watching a young man pour everything he had into earning their respect rather than expecting it to be handed to him. And they had responded by fully embracing him as their leader. Garrett's defense of Sanders accomplished multiple things simultaneously. It validated the quarterback's performance against Pittsburgh as something genuinely special rather than a lucky outlier. It destroyed the false narratives about locker room discord that media members had been circulating for weeks. It sent a clear message to future critics that attacking Shedeur Sanders meant dealing with Myles Garrett as well. And it established publicly what apparently everyone inside the building already knew privately. Shedeur Sanders had earned the complete trust of his teammates. For a rookie quarterback, that kind of endorsement is almost unheard of. Veterans typically make young players prove themselves over extended periods before offering genuine praise. The culture of professional football demands that respect be earned through consistent performance over time rather than granted based on potential or draft status. Myles Garrett essentially accelerated that entire process by putting his own reputation and credibility behind Sanders in the most public way possible. The media members in that press room understood they were witnessing something significant. The questions became less aggressive. The probing for controversy became less persistent. Garrett had drawn a line in the sand and made clear that crossing it would be professionally unwise. Shedeur Sanders was their guy. The entire locker room believed in him. And anyone who wanted to continue pushing false narratives would have to explain why the most respected player on the team completely disagreed with their assessment. Of course, the pressure on Shedeur didn't exist in isolation. There was always another factor that made his situation uniquely complicated. A factor that followed him everywhere and shaped how people perceived everything he accomplished. There is no escaping the shadow when your father is one of the greatest athletes in football history. Every throw Shedeur Sanders makes gets filtered through the lens of who raised him. Every success gets questioned as potentially manufactured. Every failure gets magnified as proof that talent doesn't automatically transfer through bloodlines. Being Dillon Sanders' son opened doors that remain closed for others, but it also created obstacles that most people never have to face. Dillon Sanders isn't just a former player. He's an icon, a legend. A cultural phenomenon who transcended football and became one of the most recognizable athletes on the planet. Prime Time defined an era with his extraordinary talent, his unmatched confidence, and his ability to back up every bold statement with performance on the field. 2 Super Bowl rings, 8 Pro Bowl selections, a spot in the Pro Football Hall of Fame reserved for the absolute elite of the elite. And now he coaches college football at Colorado, while his son tries to build an NFL career. The speculation around Shedeur started before he ever became a serious draft prospect. People questioned whether he would have received the same attention if his last name was different, whether college coaches recruited him based on talent or famous parentage, whether the media coverage was genuine recognition of ability or manufactured content designed to capitalize on the Sanders brand. These questions followed Shedeur everywhere. Every interview included some reference to his father. Every profile focused as much on Dillon as on Shedeur himself. Every analysis of his game eventually circled back to comparisons with what his dad accomplished decades earlier. The young quarterback couldn't escape being defined by someone else's legacy, no matter how hard he worked to establish his own identity. Reports suggested that some NFL teams actively avoided Shedeur during the draft process, specifically because of the Dillon factor. The speculation was that franchises worried about the baggage that came with the famous last name. Would Dillon be constantly involved in his son's career? Would media circus follow the team everywhere? Would the attention become a distraction that outweighed whatever talent Shedeur brought to the field? None of these concerns were based on anything Shedeur actually did. He never demanded special treatment. He never used his father's connections to avoid accountability. He never acted like the rules didn't apply to him because of who his dad was. But the perception existed regardless of reality. Teams made assumptions about what drafting Shedeur would mean for their organization without actually knowing whether those assumptions had any validity. The irony is that Dillon Sanders raised his son to be exactly the kind of player and person that NFL franchises claim they want. Disciplined, hard-working, competitive, accountable, coachable. Everything about Shedeur's preparation and approach to the game reflected the lessons learned from growing up with a Hall of Fame father who understood what excellence required. But instead of being credited for those qualities, Shedeur was punished for the same association that created them. The pressure of the situation would have crushed most young athletes. Imagine knowing that every mistake you make will be broadcast nationally and analyzed through the filter of your famous parent. Imagine understanding that a significant portion of your critics aren't even evaluating you fairly because they've already decided that your success is illegitimate. Imagine carrying the weight of a legendary last name while simultaneously trying to prove that you deserve recognition independent of it. Shedeur navigated all of this without publicly complaining or making excuses. He showed up to work every day knowing that the microscope on him was more powerful than what other rookies faced. He accepted that fair treatment wasn't coming and chose to let his performance speak louder than any argument he could make. He understood that the only way to silence the doubters was to be so undeniably good that the conversation had to change. What makes this situation even more complicated is the genuine love and support between father and son. Dillon has been openly proud of Shedeur throughout his career. He celebrated his accomplishments and defended him against critics. He's been present and involved in ways that most parents can only dream about. None of that is remotely problematic in any normal context. But in the twisted world of professional sports media, that healthy family dynamic became ammunition for critics. Dillon's pride in his son was reframed as overbearing involvement. His public support was characterized as pressure that would eventually become suffocating. The close relationship that should have been admired was instead treated as evidence of future problems waiting to happen. Shedeur never let any of this affect how he approached his craft. He honored his father's legacy by working relentlessly to build his own. He accepted that comparisons would always exist while refusing to let them define his identity. He understood that being Dillon Sanders' son meant living under a spotlight that would never dim. And he chose to embrace that spotlight rather than hide from it. The Cleveland Browns saw something in Shedeur that other teams missed or ignored. They saw a young man who had been tested by pressure his entire life and never broken. They saw a quarterback who understood that criticism was simply part of the journey. They saw a leader who had learned from one of the greatest competitors in football history. Looking back at everything the critics said before the draft, their concerns now seem almost laughable. The receipts don't lie. And right now, a whole lot of analysts, scouts, and media personalities are hoping everyone forgot what they said about Shedeur Sanders before the draft. Remember those anonymous character concerns that mysteriously surfaced during the evaluation process? The ones that painted Shedeur as a diva who couldn't handle coaching. The whispers about attitude problems and ego issues that would supposedly destroy locker room chemistry. Those concerns look absolutely ridiculous now. Myles Garrett just told the entire world that the Browns' locker room is a brotherhood built on mutual respect and sacrifice. The best player on the team publicly declared that everyone fights for each other. That doesn't happen when a quarterback has the personality problems that scouts allegedly identified. Remember the analysts who questioned whether Shedeur's college success would translate to the professional level? The ones who suggested his statistics at Colorado were inflated by a system designed to make him look better than he actually was. They conveniently ignored that Shedeur was making throws that required elite arm talent and processing speed regardless of what system he played in. They dismissed his performances against quality competition as anomalies rather than evidence of genuine ability. And now, they're watching him dissect NFL defenses with the same precision he showed in college. Remember the talking heads who said teams should avoid Shedeur because of the circus that would follow him. The prediction that his famous last name would create distractions that outweighed his talent? Cleveland drafted him anyway. And instead of chaos and dysfunction, the Browns got a young quarterback who showed up to work every day and earned the respect of veterans through preparation and performance. The predicted circus never materialized because it was never based on anything real in the first place. The narrative manipulation around Shedeur before the draft was genuinely shameful when examined honestly. Media members who had never spent a single moment with him felt comfortable declaring what kind of person and teammate he would be. Analysts made definitive statements about his character based on assumptions and stereotypes rather than actual evidence. The entire evaluation process was poisoned by speculation presented as fact and rumors treated as reliable information. What makes this even more frustrating is how rarely anyone in sports media admits when they get things catastrophically wrong. The same voices that were loudest in doubting Shedeur will quietly pivot to praising him without ever acknowledging their previous positions. They'll act like they always believed in his potential while hoping nobody scrolls back through their old tweets and articles. Accountability doesn't really exist in the hot take economy. The reality is that rookie quarterbacks almost never receive the kind of endorsement that Myles Garrett just delivered. Veterans typically make young players suffer through extended proving periods before offering genuine respect. The culture of professional football demands that hierarchy be maintained and that newcomers understand their place before being elevated. For a first-year quarterback to earn the public backing of a defensive superstar like Garrett represents something truly exceptional. Think about how many rookie quarterbacks have come into the league with hype and expectations, only to watch veteran teammates subtly undermine them through body language and lukewarm praise. Think about how many young signal callers have struggled to earn trust from players who had seen countless prospects fail before them. The default setting for NFL veterans is skepticism toward rookies until proven otherwise over extended periods of time. Shedeur Sanders broke through that barrier in months. Not years, months. He did it by being exactly who he always claimed to be, a hard worker who prepared like a professional from day one, a competitor who wanted to win more than he wanted personal glory, a teammate who held himself accountable before pointing fingers at anyone else, a leader who earned respect through actions rather than demanding it through words. The doubters had every opportunity to evaluate Shedeur fairly. They had access to his college film. They had interviews and combined performances and pro-day workouts. They had everything they needed to make an accurate assessment of who he was as a player and person. Instead, they chose to focus on his last name and manufacture concerns that had no basis in observable reality. Now those same doubters have to watch Shedeur Sanders prove them wrong week after week. They have to listen to Myles Garrett call him the best playmaker on the roster. They have to see a Browns locker room united behind their rookie quarterback in ways that directly contradict every prediction about dysfunction and discord. They have to accept that their evaluation was fundamentally flawed and driven by bias rather than genuine analysis. Some of them will learn from this experience and approach future evaluations with more humility and open-mindedness. Most of them won't. The incentive structure of sports media rewards confident predictions regardless of accuracy. Being loudly wrong generates more engagement than being quietly correct. The same people who missed on Shedeur Sanders will miss on the next prospect for the same reasons and face the same lack of consequences. But for Shedeur, none of that matters anymore. The opinions of critics who never believed in him hold zero weight compared to the respect of teammates who see him work every single day. The validation he needed didn't come from media members changing their minds. It came from Myles Garrett standing in front of cameras and telling the world what everyone in that locker room already knew. So where does all of this leave the Cleveland Browns and their surprising young quarterback? Cleveland Browns fans know pain better than almost any fan base in professional sports. Decades of quarterback disappointments have left scars that don't heal easily. Names that were supposed to be the answer but became cautionary tales instead. Draft picks invested in signal callers who couldn't handle the weight of the position. Free agent acquisitions that promised hope but delivered only more heartbreak. The quarterback graveyard in Cleveland is overflowing with prospects who couldn't survive the pressure. But something feels genuinely different this time. And it's not just blind optimism from fans desperate to believe in something positive. Myles Garrett's endorsement of Shedeur Sanders carries weight precisely because Garrett has seen the failures up close. He's been the best player on bad teams for years. He's watched quarterbacks come and go without ever providing the leadership or talent necessary to build a winner. He understands better than anyone what Cleveland has been missing at the most important position in professional sports. And he's telling the world that Shedeur Sanders is the real deal. That matters more than any statistical analysis or media evaluation could ever capture. When the franchise cornerstone publicly declares that the rookie quarterback is the best playmaker on the roster, it signals a fundamental shift in how this organization operates. The Browns aren't just hoping Shedeur develops into something special anymore. They're building around him with complete confidence that he's already arrived. The culture change Garrett described during his press conference represents something even more valuable than individual talent. Brotherhood, mutual sacrifice, fighting for each other rather than pointing fingers when things go wrong. These concepts sound like empty buzzwords when teams are losing, but when a squad starts winning while embodying those principles, they become the foundation of sustained success. Shedeur Sanders didn't just prove he could make throws against the Pittsburgh Steelers. He proved he could unite a locker room that had every reason to fracture. He proved he could earn respect from veterans who had watched countless young quarterbacks fail before him. He proved he could handle pressure that would have crushed athletes with less mental fortitude. Those intangible qualities separate franchise quarterbacks from guys who merely have talent. The rest of the NFL should be paying very close attention to what's happening in Cleveland. Teams that passed on Shedeur because of manufactured concerns about his character or his famous last name might be regretting those decisions for a very long time. Franchises that thought they were being smart by avoiding perceived baggage may have outsmarted themselves into missing a genuine star. The league is full of general managers who will spend years trying to find what the Browns already have. And for Shedeur personally, this moment represents vindication that extends far beyond football. Every person who told him he only received attention because of his father has to reconsider that position. Every critic who suggested he lacked the toughness or work ethic for professional football has been proven wrong. Every anonymous source who whispered about character concerns has been exposed as either dishonest or ignorant. He faced a gauntlet of doubt and disrespect and emerged on the other side with his reputation enhanced rather than diminished. The bond between Shedeur and his teammates appears unbreakable at this point. That connection will be tested throughout his career. There will be bad games and losing streaks and moments when outside pressure intensifies again. The media won't suddenly become fair or balanced in their coverage just because Myles Garrett defended his quarterback once. Critics will find new reasons to doubt and new narratives to push whenever opportunities arise. But Shedeur now has something that can't be taken away. He has the genuine belief of his teammates. He has proof that he belongs at the highest level of professional football. He has a foundation of respect built through performance under maximum pressure. He has answered the most important questions about whether he could handle this moment. What comes next is where the story gets really exciting. The Browns have a defensive superstar in his prime who desperately wants to win championships before his window closes. They have a young quarterback with legitimate star potential who has already shown he can deliver in clutch situations. They have a locker room unified around a shared belief in each other rather than fractured by selfish agendas. The pieces are falling into place for something special. Cleveland hasn't experienced sustained quarterback excellence in a generation. Fans have learned to protect themselves emotionally by refusing to get too excited about any prospect. The scars from past disappointments run deep and heal slowly. But maybe, just maybe, this time is different. Maybe Shedeur Sanders is actually the franchise quarterback that Browns fans have been waiting decades to find. Myles Garrett clearly believes that's the case. The entire locker room apparently agrees. And after watching Shedeur dismantle the Pittsburgh Steelers in a game that everyone expected Cleveland to lose, it's becoming increasingly difficult to argue against them. The doubters had their chance to be right about Shedeur Sanders. They missed badly. Now they'll have to sit back and watch him prove them wrong for years to come. As for Shedeur himself, the message is simple. Keep doing exactly what earned you this moment. The critics will always find reasons to doubt. The media will always manufacture controversy. The pressure will never completely disappear. But when you have Myles Garrett standing in front of cameras telling the world you're special, when you have an entire locker room fighting alongside you as brothers, when you have a fan base finally ready to believe again, nothing else really matters. Cleveland finally has its quarterback, and the rest of the league better get ready for what's coming next.